Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hero Nation Show, the place where entrepreneurs and business owners just like you come to learn tools and tactics to live more epic lives. I am your host, John Rinehart, and today I am sitting next to the one, the only Kelly Kilmer, coach, certified coach of Hero Nation, mom, real estate owner, entrepreneur, all things to all people, Kelly Kilmer. So I think it's really interesting, and what I kind of wanted to talk to you about today is you kind of have the image and persona of the phoenix that's rose from the ashes, in a lot of ways. So like you came in from kind of like a horribly like abusive relationship, and like this it's a really like incredible kind of harrowing story of kind of like dusting yourself back off and kind of rising out of the world kind of being stacked, the world kind of stacking itself against you. And I've always found it like just incredibly inspirational. But I want to talk about like what happens afterwards. Right. Okay. Because and this is kind of from my experience, like, because we hear these stories of amazing business owners, entrepreneurs, these people, we call them like, they pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. Everything was kind of stacked against them, and they pull themselves out, right? And I want to know, what does it look like afterwards?
Right. Okay. So, in brief, humble beginnings, and I almost felt like I didn't fit from a very young age. Like my mind was bigger, and I was wanting to do more, and I saw what was happening in the world and friends or family, just thinking, why aren't we doing that? Why aren't we growing businesses and living larger?
So kind of the classic like Disney fairy tale princess looking off into a whole new world.
Something like that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, something like that. So I wanted that. It was the prince on the white horse that was going to come in and just boost me into this perfect life. And I had this vision, I think, worse than a lot of people do, of the picket fence and the 2.5 children and money in the savings account and just this,
right,
in the suburbs.
This very idyllic life.
Yeah, just that. And for some reason, even though I knew I had it inside of me, I thought someone else had to be there and push me into it and provide
you needed
for
the
me.
prince.
Yeah, I needed a provider. I needed someone to come and save me, as you would say.
Right.
And that dynamic that was toxic was built on that. I will save you. And to the point of it was, even when we met, I was in college, was paying for college myself, working the jobs, knew I was well equipped to get off and be an independent person. Yet when this person walks in my life, it was like, oh, well, I can.
Here's the fairy tale story.
Yeah, it's going to save me. And so much so that I left the college I was at, moved to a state I had never been to.
So where were you
on
at
a
that
whim.
point?
I was in Lubbock, Texas, at Texas Tech University.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so then you went to
Oklahoma, because he had been offered a job position, and he looked, and again, we had been in this for 2.5 years already, and I knew it was toxic. I knew in my heart of hearts, my gut was saying this is not the right thing.
Okay. So what made it toxic?
It's just a straight up abusiveness.
Okay.
What
does that look like?
It looks like
because I think sometimes people like struggle like, well, like, what is abuse? Well, that's not really abuse. What are we talking about?
Right. It's like working to own a person in some ways. In this case, it was gaslighting, which is a big fancy term for just mind fuck. Just like
so
bending
explain it.
Yeah, like me, you turn around to grab something off the table, and I remove your water bottle, and you turn around and you go, what water bottle? Oh, there was no water. You're crazy, John. There's
no water bottle. There never was a water bottle.
Right, there was never a water bottle. And so, that's just a small example of that kind of thing, that as it builds over years, you start to believe that you are crazy. I mean, that's...
Oh, so this wasn't like a ha ha ha. here's your
No,
water bottle.
right.
This was a like I do this and then I never tell you.
Right. And and I found out in time that I was also filling a picture in his mind of a perfect, family and some kind of impression that we were going to show the world. In order for him to seem normal, he needed a wife, some type of trophy, someone, have some beautiful children, the picket fence, the everything. I was fulfilling that for him too. And yet, so in that I was ownership, I was an employee, I couldn't be my own person. So, and you talk about like actual examples of that type of abuse was me saying, here's what I think about our next business move, and he said, I don't have you here to think.
Oh, hey.
So that's not, he just straight up said, you are not here to think. And me being, my spirit inside is like, I'm an entrepreneur. I have all these ideas. I want to share with the world. I want to do this, just wanting to grow. And yet in that relationship, I was being held to, and at the time I had degreed school teacher. It's like, you're just a school teacher. And he said, I make the money. Like, I bring money to this family and you just do your hobby during the day. So how could you have input into the family?
So because he said that being a school teacher wasn't real.
Yes, I am.
Because it made less.
Just a school teacher,
Right.
So it crushed my spirit. Yet with an upbringing of God hates divorce, and you work it out. You work through things, you work through problems, and I'm very stubborn. That I was stubborn enough and wanting to hold it together. That I was thinking, well, I can get through this if I'm just patient enough. If I'm better, maybe if I'm better, I'll be recognized. Maybe if I change, if I work harder, if I'm stronger. It was bringing me to a point where my mental and physical health were suffering a lot. And I had to take a good look at that and say, this is not the best environment for my children. And I'm here for them. So.
Okay, so how many kids did you have at that point?
3.
Okay, so what did that look like? You said, like, it's not the best environment. I think it's cute right now. Like, you're like, oh, cute, that's the wrong word. Sorry. I feel like it's an oversimplification to be like, oh, like, it was not the best environment. I think that's like a really nice way of saying like, I mean, that's not an easy choice. And that sounds like a really desperate choice. If I can put it like that. Like, it's, I mean, you have to be in fight or flight mode to make that kind of decision that's so big and so bold. So, like, because if I remember right, like, you took out and just left.
Yes. So the fight or flight mode is exactly what was killing my health. It was that I was living in an environment that was constantly that, you're going back and forth, and I had to, and that decision was made over some time, some big life changes. I lost my mother to cancer. We'd had a lot of like financial and business things that just weren't going right. And I believed, and I didn't believe it. I knew it was due to just ethics problems and like not having a grounded business that was led by someone else. And I, begged and pleaded, let's straighten this out. Let's do right. Let's make it all good. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't fix it. Yeah, it was really hard for me in the church and spiritual area, because the immediate response. So at the time, I should say, I was teaching at a Christian school. My children were there, so I was heavily involved in that area. And the response was, well, have you prayed about it? God hates divorce. Have you tried counseling? Have you, just anything, or when are you going to reconcile? And it was difficult for me to look people in the eye and go, I've been through all the options to make this kind of decision. You got to understand, I've been through these options. This was the choice that had to be made.
So you were just basically like, there will be no reconciliation.
Right. And that through some research, in my own research of looking at, once I was putting a name to the abusive patterns, was seeing that the average on most domestic violence either way, men against women, women against men, that is 7 times that they would leave and go back.
You leave with the clothes on your back in the car?
That was it. So on June 3rd, 2011, after my ex-husband went to work, I got in the car with the 3 kids and the dog, because I didn't want the dog to get hurt either. And we left with everything in trash bags. And we were involved in real estate, so we had a rental property that was vacant. It didn't have any lien on it, which meant for me a little bit of security, because I knew that as soon as I was gone that I wouldn't have access to money anymore, that was it. So I didn't want, at least I knew I had a living situation. At the time, they didn't have a domestic violence shelter that would allow my dog in my hometown, which is Tulsa, Oklahoma. They do now. They do have that. And at the time, that was what was on my mind. I wanted that protection. It was like a sense of protection. And so we went there. The car was paid for, but was later sold out from under me. So I didn't have it anymore. But at the time, I was able to have a vehicle and the kids safe and a place to put over our heads for at least what I thought would be temporary.
A lot of survival instincts that you kind of like learned over that time period, right?
Yes.
So what were some of those?
I liken it to what someone does after coming out of addiction. It's one day at a time. And the tactics were, if I can get through today, like what can I do to get through today, to either financially start rebuilding, separating that part from other things. I took a job that I wouldn't, that wouldn't have been me a few years prior. It was just anything I could do to make those ends meet. And when I was doing that, I was like, I'll focus on my work, and then I can starting to compartmentalize some of the things just so I could get through it. And I had young kids too. So I do have some background in theater and education and being in front of people. So I really had to like put on an act for the children that everything was okay. That I was going to be okay. And I was surprised. I thought they would be hit by, like, we had a lot of nice things, don't get me wrong. In the prior relationship, I was living in a 6,000 square foot house. We had fast cars. We always had money. We had everything we needed. And I thought in leaving the kids were going to feel this huge impact of it not being there. But I actually saw the opposite, was that they were more talkative. They were more engaged because we went to things like the park because it was free. And it was better. So that was just one of the coping things I did, was like really focus on one day at a time, keeping that act going for the kids. It wasn't an act. It really was just to keep a happy face on for them, right, and start planning recovery.
So how did the happy face, right, putting on kind of the fake face every day, kind of being strong, how did that work forward into life afterwards?
Well, now it's not pretend anymore. Say, this is my happy face. But you do, when you get involved, I'm in business.
But your walls went up, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, how long did it take for the walls to come down?
Oh, some of those walls are still there. I said it's a recovery process. I believe it will take many years. It's been 7 years. There's still some walls there. I'm slower to trust people with everything. Just really slower to trust. But the face is something I use on a day-to-day basis, and I hate to say it's like a fake thing. It's actually, I create happy because I am. I wake up every morning and list the things I'm grateful for, and it's difficult to be fearful and grateful at the same time, or unhappy and grateful at the same time. So if you start that way and just change my mind into, I am so happy. And I say it to people all the time. Today is the best day of my life. Like, this is the best day of my life. And tomorrow is going to be the best day of my life. It's this little much better. And every single day is better because I'm building myself, recovering in myself, but I'm building businesses. I'm still raising children. Each day I'm a little bit wiser. I've met new people. It's the best day of my life.
How do you give yourself enough grace to understand that? Because I feel like when you've gone through trauma, like we kind of expect our lives to be the same, and they aren't. And I feel like a lot of us try to go backwards, and we're like, I want to have my life back, but your life's never coming back. Like your old life at least is never coming back. Your new one might be. What you make out of it will be. So how did you go about that process? Because I mean, there is like a certain sense of loss, like you're not going back.
Right. It's huge. Like anyone who goes through a loss of a relationship or loses a family member, it's tough. There's before and after. And what I found is I had not processed a lot of loss in my life until that one. That, I'd lost the things. Like I said, just 6 months prior to my leaving was when my mother passed away. And I had not processed it. I did it all at once. When that happened, it was like dogpile. Yeah, it was. I had to process that. The year before, we had a fire, and I had lost a lot of like material stuff. But all this was like coming together. And as it was happening, it's almost like I realized that this was for a better purpose.
So if someone is going through abusive relationship, they're in that place now, what are some of the lies that they need to face in order to move forward?
The biggest one is the you are enough. That comes up often in our conversations, that you're enough. You are enough to take care of you, whatever that means for you. Because every situation's unique. And that's what I would tell them. It's like, you're enough. Make decisions, do what you need to do.
It's like, your husband, had you in real estate, and he was basically like, you don't have the brains to do kind of real estate stuff. And then you kind of like did this like really awesome fuck you move, which was that you like actually like turned around and like went into real estate, and like beat his ass.
I mean, he told me that. Yeah. You will never succeed helping other people buy and sell houses.
And that did fuel you forward.
It did. It's called spite production. Spite production. Yes, I see agents doing it all the time. They're getting stuff done because they have something to prove to somebody. And
so what happened when that ran out?
The spite piece?
Yeah.
There's still the money demand for me to produce high.
No. What I mean is, like, if that's a motivation, like if spite motivation, revenge motivation, whatever kind of motivation you got, like when that ran out, and it did at some point, right?
Yes.
Right? There was enough fuck you there to be like, I don't really care. Like what like, see that's what I meant like earlier when we started talking, like there's these things. Like it helps us. It helped you cope, right?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, when that was gone, like how did you replace that identity piece of like why you were in business and everything else?
Right.
Like how did you deal with that? Because that served you so well up until that point when that original motivation ran out.
Right. Oh, true. And what happened is I went back to who I was, which let's go back. I was a teacher. So I'm producing, out of spite and bills, both. I needed to make money to get my feet on the ground and build a foundation for the rest of my life. I needed the money, but I also wanted to kind of prove to the world that I was smart enough. I am a business person. My ideas do matter. But when it ran out, like you said, eventually the spite runs out. The heart of the teacher came back out. And so now I was wanting to show other people how to do it, like how to build businesses quickly, how to balance them with personal life, with personal challenges, and they still come left and right. I don't have less challenges than I did a few years ago. I just handle them better because I'm working out of my heart instead of spite, revenge, desperation, whatever.
So do you find that that's actually made you more productive?
Yes, very much so. And much more balanced because I did some of that production, big production meant I was sacrificing a lot of hours of sleep and crazy. There's a lot of crazy going on to make that happen. And now I can still produce and do what I need to do, but balance that out with other things, coaching, helping lift other people up, time with children, and they're not so little anymore. So the message is, when I'm talking with coaching clients or friends or just other people who are, in business, is you don't have to run off of your past or your upbringing. We had a conference recently where almost everyone kind of referenced their childhood. I had a rough childhood, or I had this or that. And they help you grow. You don't dismiss your childhood, yet it's not who you are today. And like I said, there's still things coming, left and right. I'm looking for them, on a daily basis, what's going to come. But it doesn't have to define where your business is headed, and you define you. And when you really know who you are, those things come around, and you're like, oh, that's okay. Yes, I need to deal with this, but that's not going to suck me into some trap or get me back to victim mode. It's like, I'm going to take care of these things and move on.
Yes. Guys, I want to know what you have dealt with and how you've kind of moved past in the comments below. I want to know what's that look like, and we want to hear your stories. I'd love to read some fantastic stories, or make a video of it and post it up. I'd love to tag us at the Hero Nation and let us know. And that brings us to our sponsor, which is fuel. And guys, if you like this kind of conversation, how much better would it be to be in a pod, a group of people with someone like Kelly, who actually does run pods for Hero Nation Fuel, so that you could literally take advantage of the experience and the wisdom that she has, beyond the stuff that just Wayne or myself, we have these kind of people that are helping you on a weekly basis, so that you can have conversations, so that you can implement tactics to honestly compress time, move your business forward, move your personal life forward. Because honestly, if your personal life is moving forward, your business will move forward with it. Right? Sometimes we deal with issues of more on the personal nature. That's the reason this whole deal is way more about personal than it was about business, because the tactics that are here, dealing with pain and being able to move past it, they apply to all the different areas of your life. But they also apply because we get into really bad relationships and really bad circumstances in our businesses, and then we have to get out of them, and this is how we do it. And guys, join Hero Nation Fuel. There's a 30-day back guarantee. You're gonna love it. You're not going to need that 30-day back guarantee, but it's there if you do, right? Get in with these kind of people that will raise you up 3, 4, 5 times your level, and really get in there and see something new. Kelly, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. And guys, we'll see you again next time. Until next time, peace out, and may the force be with you. Be your own hero.